let's talk about spring break. We are, after all, based in South Florida. I've noticed traffic is at an uptick, and the crime reporting also on an uptick. Miami Beach specifically. Humberto, what do you have on the spring break ban?
After my last appearance on the show, when I talked about gay whales, I want to move a little bit towards the beach.
Onto land.
And, spring break is a wonderful thing. I remember when, I went to college here in San Diego. We went to Lake Havasu. 4 people died. But it was a great weekend. I mean, it wasn't them dying. They drank too much, jet skis and whatever.
Who starts? Hey, we had a great vacation. 4 people died, but listen, we went jet skiing.
It was a blast.
It was voluntary deaths.
Yeah, voluntary. I bet they died happy.
What, did you know them, or were
No,
they
I
just
didn't know them. They went to another school. But anyhow, spring break, massive ban. I want to give some, historical context to the story because we're right now here in. Can I say where we are?
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Good. I don't know.
Miami
I don't know.
special cousin.
Max, like, if you have problems, go to blank.
Yeah, what are we broadcasting from Zuckerberg's bunker? No, we're live from the cigar lounge. And
Yes,
Fort
I don't know. I don't want to be one of the 4 guys. Anyways, 1936, some genius brought 300 beautiful-looking swimmers here to Fort Lauderdale, and that was the beginning of spring break, okay? Then by 1953, people did that and started drinking while doing it.
Took them 20 years.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it took
right?
20 years for them to figure out that swimming and drinking, that was spring break. And 15,000 students came here to Fort Lauderdale to celebrate like the big, massive spring break. Then it went on. It was highlighted in 1959 by Time magazine. In 1985, 370,000 students came to the Fort Lauderdale area. That's just a big number, record. And in 1986, was probably the closest. I won't say. Anyways, 1986, MTV breaks their show Spring Break. Anyone remember? Spring
Yes,
Break
hosted
MTV?
by Pauly Shore.
I know, it was great. Top entertainment. Anyhow, Florida, we're going to show this video right now, and then I add a little bit more context.
Okay.
Hey, we need to talk.
This isn't working anymore.
And it's not us. It's you. We just want different things.
Our idea of a good time is relaxing on the beach.
Hitting up a spa.
Or checking out a new restaurant.
You just want to get drunk in public and ignore laws.
Do you even remember what happened last March?
That was our breaking point, so we're breaking up with you.
And don't try to apologize and come crawling back. This isn't safe, so we're done.
And just so you know, we're serious.
This March, you can expect things like curfews, bag checks, and restricted beach access.
DUI checkpoints, $100 parking, and strong police enforcement for drug possession and violence.
Whatever it takes, because it's time to move on.
Maybe we can talk when you're done with your spring break phase, but until then.
Boo. That was lame.
I know, lame. I feel discriminated against because they're going against people that like to get drunk and ignore laws. Okay, that can't stand. But anyhow, there's a ban on spring break, $100 parking near the beach. It hurts a lot since, this was the original spring break location. And, I think we can go to the next article or the tweet. Apparently, all this is racist. I don't know how they spin it around, but the left is going crazy about making this about race. And I think this is about, people that, are out there to have a good time. Things happen. There's misbehavior. You're preparing your take on it.
I'm ready.
Oh, I got a take.
So I don't know. Let's show a few videos of the disturbances that occurred. This was actually here.
Damn.
Yeah.
Interesting. Nobody breaking it up. Everybody with a cell phone.
Everybody with a cell phone on TikTok.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Posting it on TikTok.
This one was last year in Miami. The other one was Fort Lauderdale. But I think...
by the Clevelander?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we get the picture. It gets rowdy. What do you guys think? Should we ban spring break? Should we keep on
Okay.
doing spring break?
Look,
Go ahead.
I am going to agree with the left for a second. It is about race. Miami Beach is saying, Tyrone and Tanisha, we don't want you no more. Okay? I'm going to say what nobody else in this room on this panel can say is that when you look at every single one of those videos, when it's the girls hair pulling on the beach, when it's the dudes like people getting shot, all of that stuff, it's always black people. Like, I'm sorry, it's always my cousins coming from Charlotte, coming from Atlanta, whatever, and cutting up. Like, it's the truth. It's the reality of the situation. And it's like everybody knows it, but nobody can say it. So I'm just going to keep it real. I live in Miami Beach right now. I just moved a couple of weeks ago to Miami Beach. I was staying on the mainland in Miami for a while. I love Miami Beach. These restrictions are real. Like, I drive a Vespa. I can barely find somewhere to park that. Cops are everywhere. There are multiple parking garages that are shut down. Do I think that they're going slightly overboard? Yes, but I will tell you, that element that you see shooting and fighting and doing all of this stuff is vastly reduced in Miami right now. So you have a lot of people that are just coming down here to enjoy. Everybody is civil. None of that stuff is happening.
Yeah, and I've lived in South Florida for 8 years, right? I've lived in Florida for 10. I spent the first 3 years in Tampa, moved down to Cape Coral, and we would come across the state from the southwest side over to here every year to go surfing. I'd book and do stand-up dates. One weekend I booked stand-up in Miami, not knowing that it was like, because spring break isn't just 1 week. It's like a month and a half.
Yeah,
it goes on forever.
It goes on because every college and every different system has different weeks that they do it. So they're here like every weekend.
And I had no idea. So one weekend I'm over here with my family, and I have a big camper van. It's a big one. We take it when we go on road trips. It's fun. We haven't used it in a while, but we were coming into Miami, and it's big to the point where if you're making a U-turn, you have to do a K-turn because it's so long. We're downtown in Miami, and I'm trying to figure out where to get to this comedy venue, and I'm starting to panic because there's people riding by on quads. There's people riding by on dirt bikes. It's chaos. This is 4 or 5 years ago, and then we start hearing gunshots. And, like, I've lived in inner cities. I lived in Philadelphia. I lived in Cleveland, Ohio. So I've lived in cities where we've heard gunshots, nothing this close. And I couldn't get my van out of there, and I'm panicking, and I'm looking around to see if anybody else is panicking, and people are just like, yeah, it's spring break. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
And you notice how, like, there's absolutely no real pushback to this. Like, even the left is like, you know, some leftists will be like, oh, this is about race, blah, blah, blah. There's no real pushback to that because, look, even black people with the sense that God gave us, like, nobody wants to be around the Ratchets.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry, and nobody else will say this, but you know a Ratchet when you see one, and nobody is trying to be around the Ratchets. Nobody's trying to be where the Ratchets are. We were talking about the Clevelander, you know, Miss Clevelander over there on 6th Street and Ocean. Like, you just don't go there because nobody wants to be around the Ratchets. And that just is the reality of the situation. I think that they're doing a great job at making people know that do not come here for this anymore. And by the way, we live in Florida where police are actually empowered to do their jobs. And I feel safer in Florida because Florida cops do not play.
Yeah.
They do not play. They will take you down.
I agree. I was born and raised in Miami every single weekend. My grandma lives on 7th and Collins right there. So I would go every single weekend. And growing up for the past decade or so, I had 3 weekends where I had to watch out for: Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend, and spring break. And I would go when I was in college and spring break. It got progressively worse and more violent as time went on. I got to experience it firsthand. And then when 2020 happened and the restrictions here, people were coming here to have a little bit more freedom to, I don't know, go by the water. They closed down the street of Ocean, right? And no cars were able to go, so people were able to walk. that was a total catapult of like no locals and everybody coming from different states and creating even more havoc. I would have my grandmother calling me because she lived with the balcony on 7th, and she would be like, there is a body on the corner of like her on the corner of Washington and 7th, and she would just be like, and cops are everywhere. And this happened like every other weekend. There was a fight that she was seeing.
So what you're saying is Abuela wasn't going to go do shots at Wet
I was saying I'm glad that Abuela was deaf because she was able to sleep through all of the chaos, and she doesn't have soundproof. She's right in the thick of it. So I would go there, and I think that this is a good point for it to be a little extreme because there has to be a point made. There were so many years where it was getting worse and worse and worse, and I think that the extreme part of being like, hey, we're going to do the parking. We're not going to let you, we're going to have curfew. We're going to have a lot of cops, a lot of restrictions. I think it helps the locals because everybody is coming to Miami. Like if they're from here, like, no, the locals aren't the ones causing this. It's everyone coming in, and people just want to relax and enjoy their time in Miami. They're destroying the city that they had the freedom to come to in 2020. So it needs to be a little extreme. There needs to be a point, and the point is being made.
And I agree with you. And I feel like this, like just living it, like it's a lot. Okay, it is a whole lot. And I feel like in subsequent years, it will lighten up a little bit, you know, and it'll get to a level to where it doesn't quite feel like Kuwait. It's like I've been in Kuwait, I can make that reference. But there's just like a lot of people around. I think that it will calm down after a couple of years.
But do you think that there's a bigger issue here that it like a culture issue, like to sit and watch?
There's a ratchet culture issue because it's only the ratchets that are doing this, and ratchet culture will not be fixed. Ratchet culture will not have legislation that is going to. Ratchet culture is always going to be ratchet.
I understand that, but
keep it away from my black ass.
Watching that video, I understand. There's always idiots, and you see the two people fighting. What bothers me more about those two people fighting is the crowd of people surrounding that are filming it so that they can get a viral moment. Like that to them is more important than what if that one woman beat the other woman to death and everybody's filming it. There's like this, we've become so desensitized, and it's like you talked about Twitter and seeing anti-Semitism on it earlier. One thing that became very hard for me as a father was seeing the images coming out of Israel and Gaza following October, seeing these images of kids dead, seeing people like fathers digging through Rumble. I'd never seen, and you've served 2 tours overseas?
2 tours. One tour was a training tour, but I was in Iraq for, that was a combat operation.
The Operation Enduring Freedom.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, so you've seen war-torn countries. You've seen, but this is something that you'd have to like. 20 years ago, you'd have to go there. Yeah, you could watch a documentary on A&E or the History Channel and see footage similar to this, but never at your fingertips. And it makes me feel like this social media, having these apps, having this access to information, having violent video games, having violent movies, I think all of this plays into it. We don't value human life anymore,
we're being
and it's a problem.
And when you want to talk about even bringing up the conversation about Elon and X, what I've seen on Twitter, I have a very active Twitter presence, and what I've seen more is this engagement farming, right? People make money from engagement farming. They make money from how many people look at a video. And what I've seen a lot more of on Twitter is videos like the spring break stuff, videos of either a group of black people ganging up and beating up a white person, or a group of white people gang around beating up a black person. So it's just like all of this stuff really does desensitize us, and there are people that are now monetizing this stuff that really don't care.
Sex and violence,
you know,
humans love it. They always love sex and violence at the beginning of time. I need to push back a little bit because you're taking full ownership of the Ratchets.
I'm not taking full ownership of Ratchets.
We are Latinos. We are Latinos. We have our Ratchets.
Well, y'all have y'all Ratchets, and y'all Ratchets are annoying too sometimes. But not as with them. Y'all Ratchets are annoying, but they're not as like violent.
Oh, they're super violent.
Our Ratchets.
No, I disagree.
Okay. Do we have Ratchets?
No, white people. No. White people have Ratchets too. They're just all up in Kentucky and West Virginia.
They're not making the trip. They're going to the lake.
Meth heads is what they're called.
But
in Vermont,
they're going to the watering hole.
That being said, like, I'm openly a culturalist. You know, I think we have more in common. You know, we have the same goals. We want to see a free country and everything. than people from like same color or whatever.
Yeah.
I think there's people that, you know, they want to live a free life, they want to get education, they want to take care of their kids, you know, and there's segments like I see it in Latino culture. I have nothing to do with the Ratchets from Latino culture. Like they're on a whole different level. They will take a life and not even sweat it. You've seen those killers.
Okay, so you're talking about like gang members. Because when I talk about Ratchets, like when I talk about the black Ratchets, like I'm really just talking about the people that you see in that video. Like these are not necessarily like this chick, like those girls that are fighting on the beach. She's not gonna pull out a weapon and do whatever, but she'll snatch the weave off and she'll snatch that chick up and all that stuff.
I'm sure there's more of that happening in like Hialeah.
But
yeah,
I think there's a social contagion thing going on because one of those killers, like a gang member, is surrounded, but like they know one of those guys, and that type of violence maybe might not escalate until like killing someone.
Yeah.
But the violent things and the things that go against the law and against public decency that get done, because when she sees a guy that is willing to kill someone, everything else seems less worse. You know what I mean?
I think, well, last year at the Clevelander, it was also Latinos who were shooting out, and a few people, that caught bodies. It wasn't just.
All right,
like,
so there's Tyrone's and there's Tyrone and Tanisha, then there's Juans and Juanitas.
Right, exactly. It's like a blend. We're all blended together, and it's just people. Like we can't put ourselves.
And then the white people are just terrified. Like they
nobody messes with them. They're like in the.
We're so innocent except for every mass shooting that you've ever seen.
Well, no, but here's the thing.
The United States ever been.
Well, I know that.
Or was a white guy and is now a trans woman.
I know that, but what I'm talking about is like I'm just talking about things specifically to Miami, and it's just like I'll do my little walks now that I live on South Beach. So like I'll do a walk by the beach after dinner to help digest and all this other stuff, and you'll just be walking down and it'll just be normal whatever, and then there'll just be like a crowd of Ratchets, and these white people on vacation are just terrified. They're just like given a wide berth, and it's just like, yes, this is not PC.
Might I suggest, if you're looking to come to Florida and avoid the Ratchets, the Juanitas, and the Juans, and Tanishas and Tyrones, Southwest
go to private
Florida.
parties.
Well, Southwest Florida, it's actually like I did spring break over there every year because I live there, and it's actually like Fort Myers Beach area. There's not this nonsense. It's not. It's families that come down and bring their kids.
But then that's
safe.
the other side of the coin, because I lived on the west coast of Florida for 2 years, and then it's like the whitest place on the planet. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just need a little bit more flavor.
Well, it's also what Miami's been marketed as. Like we were talking about how just South Beach is like that small strip between 5th and like, let's say 9th. Let's just give it 9th or 10th.
Yeah.
That strip is being marketed everywhere as if that's all of Miami, all
You're saying
of Florida.
5th or 9th, so it's 4 city blocks.
It's like 4 blocks.
Yeah.
That is literally posted on every poster. You can see my grandma's building like right there in those postcards. That is all you see. But like nobody talks about like other parts of Miami that are beautiful. Like Everglades is a huge part of it. A lot of nature type of things. Like I went to nature camp for like 8 years every summer. Like people don't talk about that. They just market this, and they market the Ratchet, and they market the people that come to live here as if they're locals that come with this rachetera, and it's not.
Oh, rachetera! Las racheteras!
There's some ratchet, but the locals are usually.
No vengo a Miami, las racheteras.
No rachetera. And they'll come and then they'll market it as if it's that, and it's something totally different. And we got to start pushing other parts of Miami that are actually beautiful to explore. And
you know what? I didn't know how beautiful the city really was until I lived here, and I started explored different parts. And like you got your Coral Gables, and you got your Everglades, and you got your Coconut Grove,
beautiful,
and Wynwood. Like I don't get Wynwood, like it's not for me, but
like, there's art
understand.
Right here, but if you turn a corner,
there's like a homeless person like shitting on the street.
So you're like, look,
I love it.
Florida is very interesting because you'll drive through $1 million neighborhood, and then as you're driving through that, then you'll go to the hood, then you'll see roosters, then you'll be back to $1 million neighborhood, and it's all on one block.
Well, it's
and
like
you're
Brooklyn is the perfect example of like right in the center of everything, of like everybody with tons of money, and then around the outskirts, you're like, hey, don't turn that corner because it's like the homeless sleeping right there.
You need to make your point about how it's a plot from Soros real quick before we go on.
Oh, what?
Another one.
Yeah. I know, because we have a rule here. We have to mention Soros every time, and this right here is a plan to destroy the human population. Did you know that after December, Christmas time, spring break is the time that there's most recorded pregnancies?
Yeah, I don't know if I want those people reproducing that I saw on the beach fighting.
Oh
like
no!
that.
Here's the problem. They don't have to come to Miami to reproduce. They're reproducing
They're
at
already coming
home
pregnant.
and creating another generation of Ratchets, which is why I've given up on this idea that when I first came out and started doing all this stuff, I was like, the black community needs to come to conservatism and all that stuff. Like Ratchets are Ratchistas. What she said?
Rachetera.
Las Ratcheteras. They have been, they are, and will always
Always be.
remain.
Yeah.
Will always be.